Hi everyone, it's Amy and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. I hope that you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing in the comments below. Today we are talking about my 2025 reading goals, and I am really wanting to start this year with a clean slate. I am kind of wiping my previous expectations as far as reading goes, and I'm just wanting to go with more intentionality, going deeper rather than wider, as they say. But as we are going through this list of goals that I have, let me know what some of your goals are for 2025. But let's get into this list. All right, first on my list is that there is no set TBR for Amy in 2025. And I know that probably sounds crazy, but honestly, I don't stick to them when I make them. I have a Goodreads where you can go and check out my lists and everything. I have that in the link below. But I just think of my lists as far as what's on Goodreads as like, this is the mood I'm in. I want to read this genre or this type of book. And here are some that I have saved that I might potentially like in the future. I don't feel like I have to read all of those books. If I did, it would be crazy because I think there's like over 1,000 books on my Goodreads. So I don't think I can look at that and be like, yeah, I've got to read these. I would totally feel overwhelmed, and having a TBR, even just like when I made one last year, like the 24, I want to read in 2024. And I just found that overwhelming because it would grow into like the series that I need to read. And oh, I need to add on more for this author. And it just kept growing and overwhelming me. And I wouldn't be in the mood to read those. I'm such a mood reader. So I am just wanting to kind of open myself and be real with myself in that, I want to go deeper with things, but I also want to be realistic with the fact that I am a mood reader and I'm just going to read what I want. So no TBR. Even though I don't have a set TBR for the year, there are some books that I am interested in. Whether or not I get to them, I don't know, but I definitely plan to. One that I definitely want to get to is one that my husband picked out for me. We are starting a new tradition this year. We started on New Year's Day. We went to Barnes & Noble and we kind of perused and are picking out books for each other. And I picked out Project Hail Mary for him because he really loves sci-fi books. But he picked out for me one that I had not heard of, and that is Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs. And this is a really interesting sounding book. It is a debut novel. It is a retelling of Beowulf with a female main character. And our main character has powers that unlock within her. And it just sounds really, really interesting. Again, I never heard of this. So this is just kind of like sometime this year I am going to get to this book. But I love the fact that, with my husband, we're picking out books for each other and saying like, I know what you potentially would like to read, and it's something that we can talk about. And it's just a cool tradition that we're starting. One way that I want to be more intentional with my reading in 2025 is completing series that I have not finished. I've got quite a few. And even with that, I'm wanting to start a new series in January, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. My husband read this and really loved it, and people that I really trust their opinions have loved this series, so I want to read it, but I still want to finish series that I have not completed. And starting off that list is the Rook and Rose trilogy by M.A. Carrick. I have read the first two books of this trilogy, and I need to read the last book, Labyrinth's Heart, which I've heard mixed reviews about, so I've been a little bit apprehensive about reading it, but I want to be able to say that I finished it, and I really enjoy the world and the characters. It is super complex politically. There's a large cast of characters. The magic is really complex, but I really enjoy it, so I definitely want to get to that one in 2025. Another series that I need to complete is the Mistborn trilogy, and the next book I need to read is The Well of Ascension. And I happened to find these pretty good condition mass paperbacks, which I believe these are the original covers for the book, the original cover art. So hopefully I can find the third book because I only have the first two. I really fell in love with Sanderson's writing with Mistborn, and I know that the Cosmere is quite a huge universe that he has created, but I want to be able to get into it because I really enjoyed the writing, so definitely need to get to this one. Of course, if you have been around for a little while, you know that I have been on a Robin Hobb journey, getting through her whole Realm of the Elderlings universe, and have absolutely just fell in love with her writing. If you want to be a part of that, we are on Fable. The Appendix is our book club name, and we are in the Live Ship Traders, which is the second series of her Realm of the Elderlings universe. And we are finishing up Mad Ship and starting Ship of Destiny in January this month. So if you are around that area, definitely come and join us. We would love to have you. But definitely am wanting to continue with Robin Hobb. I doubt that we will finish the whole Realm of the Elderlings in 2025, just because my husband and I read them together and we read them very slowly. But honestly, they can be so intense. Like we spent New Year's Eve just reading together, and we did like three chapters consecutively. We usually read like two at a time, but we're near the end, very end of Mad Ship, and it was so intense. I was like, I like am mentally checking out because I can only absorb so much of her books at a time, just because it's so emotional and just heart-wrenching, gut-punching. So I definitely want to take my time with it. And honestly, when I see people finish The Realm of the Elderlings, they're like, nothing is going to compare to this, and I'm so sad the journey's over, so I want to make it last as long as possible. Now, I love pirate books, and one series that I started last year is The Song of the Current duology, which is a YA pirate fantasy, and I really enjoyed the first book. It really surprised me. It was not one that I had ever heard of before, but I will probably get to that this summer. I believe the second book is called The Whispering of Tides. I will put that up. I don't remember the exact title, but I definitely want to finish that, and we'll probably get to that this summer. Another series that I would like to try to complete, I don't know if I will get to all of them, but the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I did a recent reread of Rogue Protocol, which is the third book of this series, and because they're novellas, they're super short. It is a little bit easier for me to get through. I'm just not a huge sci-fi person, but I really enjoy these because of the character Murderbot. He's funny, and just the antics and the action that happens. But I do get a little bit lost with what I call the B-boop, the B-boop of sci-fi, the technical jargon. But with the novellas, it's a little bit easier for me to get through. I did a reread because I originally listened to this on audiobook and just did not feel myself like fully remembering, comprehending everything I was listening to. And so I did like an immersion read where I'm reading the physical and listening, and I really enjoyed that a lot more and felt like I comprehended better. Everybody comprehends differently. That's just how it works for me. And like I said, sci-fi is not my genre. The fact that I like this one, I feel like says a lot about it, as far as like, if you're more of a fantasy person or you like humor, you'll probably like these. It just has the good balance of humor and action in them. So definitely want to finish the Murderbot Diaries. Now, a romance that I really fell in love with last year was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It was like one of my top books last year. It was a 5-star romance for me, which is very unusual for me to rate romances 5 stars, but she's got this kind of like interconnected series, which is called the Part of Your World series. So I'm wanting to read more of those, and honestly just more of Abby Jimenez's work. But definitely want to complete that series because they're supposed to be interconnected characters, and it just adds some depth to the stories. Another YA fantasy that I want to get to is the sequel to Ray Bear, which is Redemptor by Jordan Ifueko. I always feel like I'm pronouncing that wrong. If I am, please correct me. But it is like an African-inspired fantasy, and it really just blew me away when I read it last year. We'll probably get to that like this spring or summer. I feel like that's where that book kind of would fit well. I just have really wanted to finish it and have had so many other books that I've wanted to get to. I also have her book, The Maid and the Crocodile, which is like a Howl's Moving Castle inspired book. It's a novella, so hopefully we'll get to that soon. Another series that I really love is the Emily Wilde series, and the third book is coming out this year, and I actually have an arc of it. It's Emily Wilde and the Compendium of Lost Tales, I believe. So need to get to that arc before the book comes out, but definitely excited to read that one. It's like cozy fantasy with like kind of like a nerdy scholarly vibe. There's some romance in there. It's just a really solid series. It's cozy, it's fun. So definitely need to get to that arc. I was really surprised by the book Little Thieves by Margaret Owens, and I have a copy of the sequel, The Painted Devils, from the library, and this is like more of a wintry book. I'm definitely like a seasonal reader. Like I said, mood reader, the seasons, it all fits in together. But this is supposed to be more wintry, so hopefully we'll get to this sooner rather than later. I just am wanting to get to the Shadow of the Gods, but hopefully while the weather is still cool. And last on my list is the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. I absolutely love The House in the Cerulean Sea. It just blew me away. Amazing cozy fantasy, and am super excited to get to this. When it first came out, I was like, I'll wait to read it from the library, and my husband was like, no, we're gonna get that book because you loved it so much. He definitely is a bad influence when it comes to buying books. As you can tell, this is his half, and these are like all Star Wars and everything. He's definitely a collector. And I've asked him and he's like, no, I haven't read all of those Star Wars books. So I try to be like conscientious whenever it comes to book buying. But like I said, he's a bad influence. And when there's something that I know I will probably really love, I want to buy it. I try to encourage people to go to the library, and I try to go to the library myself. Some of the ones I've shown you, like I said, were library books. But I had to get this one because it just is such a heartwarming story, and I can't wait to get to it. All right, now the question that I feel like everyone is trying to answer for themselves is, how many books am I going to read this year? And my goal this year, like I've been saying, is reading with intentionality. So I'm wanting to do quality over quantity. And originally last year, I set a 75 book goal in 2024. And I ended up moving it up to 100, and then I even passed 100 to 119. But I don't feel like I read that much with intentionality. I feel like I was just kind of reading what was available as far as the library and Libby, especially with audiobooks, but hopefully we'll be able to put holds more in advance and things like that. But I think I'm going to stick with my 75 goal because I do have plans as far as like genres and obviously completing series and things like that, but I just don't think I'll be listening to as much audiobooks potentially, which is where a lot of the bulk of my reading comes from. I tend to listen to them while I'm doing chores and things like that, even in the shower sometimes. So it's just like something I'm doing, I'm getting ready, whatever. So it's fitting into those little spaces throughout the day. So it's easier to get to rather than just like actually sitting down and reading a book. But I don't think I will be reading as much. And it's like me being okay with that because there is such a pressure to like, read as much as you can, whatever that societal book pressure comes from, I don't know, but I want to be more about what makes me happy as far as my reading, so I'm going to stick with 75. Now, something that I do with my husband a lot, and of course we have the book club over on Fable, but I do like the buddy reading with my husband a lot, and he'll read something and then I'll read something, or I'll suggest something and then he'll read it. We give feedback to each other, but I really would like to do more buddy reading with other people. I don't know how often I will be able to do that, but hopefully we'll do more buddy reading in 2025. Now, a big goal for me is reading more classics and literary fiction. I want to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and explore genres that I haven't really read much of, expand my mind, all of that. So I'm currently listening to Jane Eyre, which I'm surprisingly liking a lot. I didn't think I would like it that much, but I wanted to give it a try. And, there is older language to it. It is a Victorian era book, but it's surprisingly funny despite some of the more bleak circumstances that happen in that book. Just kind of the weird, awkward situational humor and just antics that people get up to in that book, especially Mr. Rochester, the main male love interest. It's just such a weird, interesting book, but it's like a weirdly realistic sort of love story. I don't know, I find it kind of fascinating. So I don't have like a set list of classics. I do have like ones that I've collected on my Goodreads where it's like these potentially might be ones that I like, as well as like literary fiction. But I don't have any that I'm like, I have to get to this year. I just know, except for like maybe like Demon Copperhead, which was the Pulitzer Prize winner in 2024, which is another goal on my list, is to read more Pulitzer Prize winners, but that kind of fits in with like literary fiction, historical fiction. If you have any recommendations as far as like literary fiction or classics that you think I might like, definitely recommend them to me because I am an open book as far as that goes. I think ones that I would be interested in, probably like The Picture of Dorian Gray, has sounded interesting to me. But other than that, I'm kind of an open book. Like I said, I definitely want to read more Pulitzer Prize winners. I actually started a list on my Goodreads, and when it gets to about like the 1960s and 50s, it starts to get, how do I say this, politically whitewashed. I don't know how to word that. It just definitely has like a dated tone as far as the books goes. There's very much not modern values and views that I particularly hold. Yeah, I just wasn't a huge fan of some of the older choices. I don't plan on reading all of them, but I want to try to read as many as possible. There's definitely probably going to be ones that I don't connect with, but I want to at least try. And definitely want to try Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver and Trust. I forget the author's name at the moment, but those were the two winners in 2025 or 2024, which I think is the first time that ever happened as far as like the voting goes. I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of learning about Pulitzer Prize winners and how that all worked. There's some years where there's no winner, and 2024 was the first time there were two winners. It's a very interesting process, but I understand that it represents like a certain aspect of literature. It's supposed to represent the American life and American history and things like that. But I just find it fascinating and I want to read more of them. Another thing that I want to do is just read more of my physical TBR. I feel like that is a goal for most people. I don't buy books all the time, but I did buy more last year than I did the previous year. And I'm just wanting to kind of check those off of my list. And, if there's ones that I don't necessarily like, I want to give them away to someone who might like them. I have a used bookstore that I donate to, and they kind of give like a percentage credit back that you can spend in the store, or even just donating to the library or thrift store, whatever, my little free libraries that are around me. So I just want to like put books back into my local community, even if they're ones that I don't particularly like. I know there's going to be somebody else that likes them. One that I need to give away is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I didn't particularly like that book, but I know a lot of other people absolutely love it. I want to give it to a home that is going to like it more than I do. But just checking those off and then potentially making room for more books on my shelf. And of course, a very important goal that I want to stick to is continuing to read diversely. I don't want to read things that are just by authors that look like me or potentially think like me. I want to read from different races and cultures and, different ideologies and just expand my worldview, educate myself on things that I am not knowledgeable about. I'm not a huge nonfiction reader, but I feel like I need to dabble in that more just to learn more about the world around me. But even if it's just in fantasy and, just the fiction world, I want to read books that are going to give me a different perspective and help me relate to other people and help me to empathize with people. Something that I did in December was try to read like my holiday Christmas sort of romances that are written by authors of color or, different races, whatever. And I found some that I actually really liked. It was just like kind of giving a different take on holiday rom-coms, which, it's like everybody likes, not everybody likes those, but it's like there's so many people that like those kind of books, and it can come from, any kind of person. So like one that really surprised me was Three Holidays and a Wedding, which is incorporating Christmas and Hanukkah and Ramadan and Eid, I believe is how you pronounce that, the Islamic holidays. So, it was like just a totally different take on something that felt very much like a Hallmark holiday movie. And I really enjoyed it. It was very cheesy and had all the aspects that you would think of like a Hallmark Christmas movie, but it was incorporating different cultures and religions, and I just thought that was really cool. There was also A Second Chance Christmas, which is by a Black author, and it was really surprising because it was giving the perspective of like dating as like a divorced person. It was also like, second chance romance, but it was like giving the perspective from the divorced couple where it was like how they're co-parenting and then also trying to date. And it was just a really like fresh take on like a second chance romance where you're getting these other perspectives that aren't romantically involved, but they are still involved as far as like sharing children and history and things like that. So it was just really fascinating and really enjoyable read. There were some parts of it that I didn't love. There was like a surprise pregnancy thing in there, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but other than that, I really enjoyed the book. But, it's like the more that you are willing to try books from people who don't necessarily look like you or believe like you, you'd be really surprised how much it can help you see other people in a light where it's like I can relate to them and empathize with them because we're all just humans here on Earth having the human experience, and we all have very similar feelings and thoughts. And even though we can be different, it's like we still are people and humans when it comes down to it. So I always want to advocate for reading diversely, and that's definitely an important goal for me in 2025. Okay, I think I have rambled on enough about my goals, but hopefully maybe this gave you some ideas for goals that you potentially can have in 2025. But definitely let me know what your reading goals are for this year in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed me rambling about mine, but thank you so much for watching. I hope that your new year is off to a great start, and I will see you guys soon. Bye!